Good morning.
Good morning.
And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Hobart, where we strive to put love at the center of how we show up in the world. I'm Barb Lango, and I'll be your worship associate this morning. I know the order of service says Rachel, and I'm not Rachel, but Rachel's sick, so I hope everybody think of her this week. So welcome to you, old friends and new young and old. You are an essential part of our celebration today. Whether today is your first or your 1000th Sunday in our midst, we are stronger because you are here with us. We are one people of many beliefs, many origins, many sexualities and genders. We are all growing, all learning, all loved. Just as you are welcome here. Today, our worship service will be led by our minister, Reverend Cathy Harrington. Since not everyone can attend in person, we are streaming this worship service online, and we extend a special welcome to those joining us virtually. Another way that we walk together is by joining together for fun and fellowship. In the interest of time, if you have any announcements to share, please send them to Ashley or the Spark by Wednesday afternoon. And if you don't receive the Spark, fill out the visitor form in the parish hall, and you'll know everything that's going on in the church. It helps to know there might be something you're interested in. I have an announcement about our plastic drive. Since April, our church members have collected 1,000 pounds of plastic paper bags. And we have our new recycled plastic bench on order. And thank you for helping to keep 1,000 pounds of plastic out of the landfill. And thank you so much to Janet for sorting our plastic. Janet, get a big hand. Please keep bringing in your plastic. Michelle will now be collecting for a bench for her employer, Powers Health Rehab in Crown Point. Your plastic will still be recycled and put to good use. Now greet your neighbor. Take a moment to really greet your neighbor. Say hello to someone you don't know. Now please turn off or silence your devices, and as you do so, allow yourself to enter sacred time together. Take a deep breath. And another. And join in the spirit of reverence.
Good morning. Each week during our Sunday worship service, we join in reciting the words of our affirmation of faith. It's printed in your order of service, and it's also on the screen. Please join with me. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament. Service is its prayer. And this is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
The flaming chalice is a symbol of Unitarian Universalism. It suggests the transformation that takes place when we are held within religious community. When we light the chalice in worship, we illuminate a world that we feel called upon to serve with love and a sense of justice. So please join in lighting our chalice by reading together the words on the screen or in your order of service. We gather this hour. Now please rise, if willing and able, for the doxology.
Before we start with the invocation, I just want to read something that the UUA posted yesterday. The Unitarian Universalist Association condemns the Trump administration's military strikes overnight against the country of Venezuela. These actions were taken after months of U.S. military harassment, resulting in the deaths of Venezuelan civilians and undertaken without involvement of Congress. As people of faith and conscience, it is essential to speak out now as the situation quickly escalates, creating dangers across the hemisphere. The people of Venezuela have a right, as all people do, to safety and self-determination. We urge our elected leaders and the courts to exercise definitive moral leadership to swiftly curtail these abuses of power and prevent this administration from causing further loss of life and violations of international law. Heather Cox Richardson yesterday said that the administration is cornered like an animal and that it's going to get worse. So I invite you to join me on Wednesday night for soup and bread at 5:30 and for a Peace Vespers service. Let this be a time of centering, but also a time of creative resistance. Resistance is our Soul Matters theme this month, appropriately. So this will be a time of centering, but also a time of creative resistance and brainstorming as we begin to understand how we can speak out and how we can be heard. And so, thank you for that. Now, opening words. Sharon Riley. It is said that ministers are here to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. And I say we are all afflicted and we are all comfortable. May our time together be a comfort and a confrontation. May we find peace in times of tumult, and may we invite tumult into lives of peace. May we find calm in times of restlessness, and may we here allow restlessness to evolve into action. Let this be the place you consider what you have never considered. Let this be the place you imagine for yourself something new and unthinkable. And may this hour bring dreams of new ways of being in the world. Please rise and body your spirit and join me in singing hymn number 89 in your gray hymnal, Come My Way, My Truth, My Life. Such a truth as ends all strife. Now it's time for our story for all ages, and I, at the last minute, changed the story. So it is no longer If I Never Forever Endeavor, which is a good story, but a little boring. So this one is called After the Fall. You may have heard this one. It's a sort of a new take on Humpty Dumpty. It's how Humpty Dumpty got back up again. It feels like 2025 was kind of a time of... So this is how we're going to get back up again, okay? So my name is Humpty Dumpty. I think I see it better up here. This was my favorite spot, high up on the wall. I know it's an odd place for an egg to be, but I loved being so close to the birds. Then one day I fell, and I'm sort of famous for that. Folks called it the Great Fall, which sounds a little grand. It was just an accident, but it changed my life. Fortunately, all the king's men managed to put me back together again. There were some parts that couldn't be healed with bandages and glue. After that day, I became afraid of heights. I was so scared that it kept me from enjoying some of my favorite things. I walked past the wall every day, and I would think about climbing that ladder again. I really missed the birds and being high above the city, but I could never do it because I knew that accidents can happen. I eventually settled for watching the birds from the ground. It wasn't the same, but it was better than nothing. And then one day, an idea flew by. Making planes was harder than I thought. But day after day, I kept trying. It was easy to get cuts and scratches, but I kept trying and trying until I got it right. My plane was perfect, and it flew like nothing could stop it. I hadn't felt that happy in a long time. It wasn't the same as being up with the birds in the sky, but it was close enough. Unfortunately, accidents happen. They always do. I almost walked away, but then I thought about the time I'd spent working on my plane and all the other things I'd missed. So I decided to climb the wall. The higher I got, the more nervous I felt, and I didn't want to admit it. I was terrified. I didn't look up. I didn't look down. I just kept climbing, one step at a time, until I was no longer afraid. Maybe you won't think of me as that egg who was famous for falling. Hopefully you'll remember me as the egg who got back up and learned how to fly. So the egg hatched. It took me a while. The first time I read that book, I didn't even notice that. It's hilarious. Life begins when you get back up. All right, thank you for listening. So I've misplaced my order of service. What's next? Oh, the offering? Oh, there it is on the floor.
Each week we share a portion of our Sunday offering with a social justice cause outside our church walls. This month we are sharing loose change with Northwest Indiana's Organization for Women Period Equity Project. The Period Equity Project places free pads and tampons directly in middle and high school bathrooms in our community. We will also be collecting physical donations of period products through the end of January in the parish hall. Donations in the baskets go to sustaining the mission of our congregation, and the donations in the cups goes to our people for today. your prayers, your presence, and your gifts. We are truly thankful.
And now, in the center of our service and in the center of our lives, let us pause to honor the silences of the world. Let us open our hearts to the place of quiet, to the silent prayer for the healing of pain and the soft, gentle coming of love. Let us pause just for a moment of silence this morning as we hold all those who are living in fear and in pain. A Litany of Wholeness by Reverend Don Cooley. Because there have been times when shame has crushed our ability to be wholehearted, we let go of who we ought to be and embrace who we are. Because we have not always had the courage to be imperfect, we let go of who we ought to be and embrace who we are. Because we have struggled to have compassion for ourselves or others, we let go of who we ought to be and embrace who we are. Because we are sometimes afraid of our own vulnerability, we let go of who we ought to be and we embrace who we are. Because we are sometimes too scared to live authentically, we let go of who we ought to be and embrace who we are. And because we want to become wholehearted people, confident in our worthiness and in our belonging, we let go of who we ought to be and embrace who we are. May it be so. Amen. I invite you now to come forward and light a candle of memory or hope, or just sit quietly as the music holds us in a meditative space. Sort of deepen towards the back. Thank you. invite you now to fill this sacred space with the names of loved ones we hold close in our hearts this morning, some suffering in sorrow and some celebrating in joy. May they feel the warmth of our embrace.
The joys and sorrows are a time to share personal joys that you are celebrating so that we can celebrate with you as a community. It is also a time to share personal sorrows that weigh on your heart so we can help support one another in times of these sorrows and grief. Keep in mind and be aware that this part of the service excludes our online members, friends, and visitors. We ask that you honor the sacred time by being as brief as possible, and so that we will leave space for joys and sorrows for others in the room. And Roz will come around with a microphone. Please stand, state your name, and tell us your joys or sorrows. For our centering hymn in the teal 1011, Return Again. have a reading, If We Do Not Venture Out, by Marnie Harmony, which it's adapted. If on a starlight night with the moon shining brightly, we stay inside and do not venture out, the evening universe remains a part of life we shall not know. If on a cloudy day with grayness infusing all and rain dancing rivers in the grass, we stay inside and do not venture out, the stormy, threatening energy of the universe remains a part of life we shall not know. If on a frosty morning, dreading the chilly air before the sunrise, we stay inside and do not venture out, the awesome cold, quiet, and stillness of the dawn universe remains a part of life we shall not know. If throughout these grace-given days of ours, surrounded as we are by green life and brown death, not pink joy and hot pink joy and cold gray pain and miracles, always miracles. If we stay inside ourselves and do not venture out, then the fullness of the universe shall be unknown to us, and our locked hearts shall never feel the rush of worship. And so in the silence we now share, may we listen deeply for that still and small, but brave and bold voice within that calls us to risk and reach, to open and emerge, to venture out into the newness waiting to be known.
Rethinking the bucket list. David Brooks, the author of The Road to Character, was moved to explore the theme of character and what he deemed the difference between resume virtues and eulogy virtues. This was after he was awakened to the present-day culture that has moved from humility of the past to arrogance. Driving home one day, he was listening to an old episode of Command Performance, a variety show created to support the troops during World War II on the radio. It was being broadcast the day after V-Day, Victory of Japan Day, on August 15th, 1945. It was a star-studded cast: Frank Sinatra, Marlene Dietrich, Cary Grant, Betty Davis, and more. He was moved by the tone of humility displayed. He writes, "The Allies had just completed one of the noblest military victories in human history, and yet there was no chest beating. Nobody was erecting triumphal arches. It looks like this is it," the host, Bing Crosby, said. "What can you say at a time like this? You can't throw your skimmer in the air. That's for the run-of-the-mill holidays. I guess all anybody can do is thank God it's over." After a solemn version of Ave Maria, sung by soprano Rice Stevens, Crosby came back on the air. "Today, though, our deep down feeling is one of humility." So then Brooks arrived home in time to tune into a football game on the television and witnessed a quarterback celebrating his short pass throw that stopped the offense in their tracks. Brooks described what followed as a self-puffing victory dance. And it occurred to him, just as he had watched the self-celebration after a 2-yard gain, that he then had heard after the U.S. World War II. Had our country lost our humility? And further exploration led Brooks to discover, indeed, we had. He writes this: "We have moved from the little me to the big me, losing the battle between Adam 1 and Adam 2, the two opposing sides of human nature, as explained by Rabbi Joseph Slovitic. Sorry, I should have looked that up. And that was in 1965. Adam 1 is the external resume Adam. He wants to build, create, produce, and discover things. He wants high status and to win victories. Adam 2 is the internal Adam. Adam 2 wants to embody certain moral qualities, such as a serene inner character, a quiet but solid sense of right and wrong, not only to do good, but to be good, to live in obedience with some transcendent truth, and to have a cohesive inner soul that honors creation and one's own possibilities. While Adam 1 wants to conquer the world, Adam 2 wants to obey a calling to serve the world. He states, to nurture your Adam 1 career, it makes sense to cultivate your strengths. But to nurture your Adam 2 moral code, it is necessary to confront your weaknesses. He emphasizes that our society today encourages us to pay attention to Adam 1 while neglecting Adam 2. We've left behind a moral tradition, he writes, and we've become morally inarticulate. And he quotes a statistic revealing that our young people today would rather work as an assistant to Justin Bieber than be the president of Harvard. And when middle school girls were asked who they most like to have dinner with, Jennifer Lopez came in first, Jesus second, and Paris Hilton third. It has been said that we teach what we need to learn most, so Brooks admits that his purpose in writing this book was to help himself and others map a path to a life of good character, humility, and virtue. And throughout the book, he tells stories of people to demonstrate his point, people of humility and virtue who have impressive inner cohesion. He said they're not leading fragmented scattershot lives. They have achieved inner integration. They are calm and settled and rooted, and they don't crumble in adversity. Their minds are consistent, and their hearts are dependable. They radiate a sort of moral joy, and they answer softly when they're challenged. They are silent when unfairly abused, and they are dignified when others try to humiliate them, restrained when others try to provoke them. They get things done, and they have achieved a certain depth. They have not lived lives of conflict-free tranquility, but have struggled toward maturity. He tells a story about people who have struggled, the struggles of Adam 1, and then turned around. They don't come out healed, he said, they come out different. For example, Frances Perkins, who after witnessing people jumping to their deaths to escape the pressing flames that were roasting them at the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory in 1911, was moved to a life of service. She found her way to Hull House in Chicago, a settlement house founded by Unitarian Jane Addams. Eventually, Perkins found her way into politics, fighting for equality for the poor, and wound up serving in Roosevelt's cabinet, where she remained throughout his entire term as president. She became known as the woman behind the New Deal. Her personal life was clearly affected by her vocation, and she, like most of the people in the book, were devoted and almost driven. He writes about Dorothy Day, the Catholic worker movement, General George Marshall, Philip Randolph, George Eliot, Augustine, and Samuel Johnson. And the struggle that these people endured, he says, are not unlike the struggles that we endure. But they appear calm and centered to those around them, but their private journals say otherwise. One doesn't arrive and then never have to struggle again. It is a daily discipline after one accepts a vocation. It isn't easy to give up a vocation. It's a commitment. So Dorothy Day, she advocated for economic change and affirmed our first principle, the worth and dignity of every person. She was Catholic. Her philosophy was stay small, start your work from where you live, and with the small concrete needs right around you. Help ease tension in the workplace. Feed the person in front of you. I love it that Dorothy Day wasn't perfect. She was an unwed mother. She was living in sin, as they called it in those days, But her legacy lives on in the Catholic worker movement. There are over 240 Catholic worker communities providing social services in our country. Each house has a different mission, going about the work of social justice in their own way, suited to its own region. Also read Schweitzer, who was a theologian, an organist, a musicologist, a writer, a humanitarian, a philosopher, and also a physician. When he was a German medical missionary in his hospital in the African jungle, he did not hire idealists for the hospital or people that had a self-righteous sense of how much they were giving to the world. He wanted people who set out to do something special. He only wanted people who would perform constant acts of service with the no-nonsense attitude that they will simply do what needs doing. He preaches a lot in this book. A little bit too much of religious language can get in the way for some. But the critics felt like the book was an indictment. But Brooks said he hoped that he might be able to find his own wholeness. The road to character offers wisdom and insight. And I was reminded of Mother Teresa's deep struggle with depression that wasn't revealed until after her death. There was a book called The Presence of Absence. She made an inner vow at the age of 32 to give to God anything he may ask and not to refuse him anything. And that private vow was one of her greatest secrets. She was 36 old when she had visions of speaking to Jesus on the Christ. After 17 years of teaching her, she said that Jesus called to her to go into the poor, in the cities of the poor. He said, "Come and be my light." Her plan was received with skepticism by the Archbishop, but she was relentless, and he finally gave her permission. In a few short months, however, she suffered great anguish and feeling fear that she might spoil God's work. It seemed that the more success she had in the work, the more worldwide attention she received, and the more deeply she despaired. The saint of the gutters, they called her, received a Nobel Prize in 1979 for her compassionate work with the sick and the dying and treating the poor with dignity and love. The Nobel Committee said its award to her in 1979 was for work undertaken in a struggle to overcome poverty and distress in the world, which also constitutes a threat to peace. And when she was informed of the honor, she said, "I am unworthy." So she went on, she established orders of missionaries of charity, and then she went on to organize far-flung programs for the impoverished, and eventually reaching more than 90 countries. After her death, she was beatified by Pope John in 2002. Some people say she was clinically depressed, as if there must be some extraordinary answer, an explanation for someone to act in such extraordinary ways. Christopher Hitchens said she was a fraud. But personally, I'm grateful for her exemplary life and comforted to know that she struggled. She wasn't perfect, as I always thought. I can imagine that Mother Teresa's dark night of the soul might also be attributed to compassion fatigue. To say her life was hard was an understatement. And I would say, if she was a fraud, most frauds don't have that kind of commitment, do they, to suffer the way she did? What kept her going? Mother Teresa's belief in the dignity and worth of every human led her to the dirty streets of Calcutta to offer compassion where there was only darkness. And one of my colleagues put it this way. He said, "Who would you rather work with? The certain and confident Jerry Falwell, or the uncertain and suffering Mother Teresa?" Whether she was depressed or a saint experiencing the longest dark night of the soul on record is a mystery. But how did she continue her grueling work for 50 years? Living a life of vocation does not require martyrdom. One doesn't have to be driven to the point of destroying your own personal life. In fact, when we give love, we find our buckets are full. We receive more than we give. I wish Brooks had told stories of unknown people of virtue, like the lovely old lady in Anderson, South Carolina, who owned a tiny little wig shop. I hardly ever saw anybody going into there, and I wondered how she could make a living. It wasn't until one of my clients was diagnosed with cancer and asked me to accompany her to pick out a wig that wouldn't look fake. When we walked into that store, Kathleen was met by an angel of mercy. This woman's vocation was so clear in the next hour as she ministered to Kathleen, giving her courage, hope, dignity, and strength to meet the coming challenges. There are angels among us doing quiet work to make people's lives better. Think in your own life for a moment about people you have met who faithfully go throughout their day offering kindness and love and hope. Brooks says we don't create our life, we are summoned by life. Viktor Frankl concluded that fate had put a moral task and an intellectual task before him. Fate had given him an assignment. What an assignment. It was one of the most influential books in America and has been translated into 24 languages. Man's Search for Meaning is Frankl's memoir of being held prisoner in concentration camps in Nazi Germany. The text was rejected by over 40 publishers until our own Unitarian publishing company, Beacon Press, chose to publish it. Frankl reminds us to always say yes to life, no matter what is happening. We keep saying yes to life, and when we grow tired and discouraged, we must remember the wisdom of Reinhold Niebuhr. Nothing that is worth doing can be achieved in our lifetime. Therefore, we must be saved by hope. Nothing which is true or beautiful or good makes complete sense in any immediate context of history. Therefore, we must be saved by faith. And nothing we do, however virtuous, can be accomplished alone. And therefore, we are saved by love. So I just want to say, if you're in your 8th or 9th decade, don't think this sermon isn't for you. In 2012, at the Meadville Lombard Theological School graduation ceremony, some of us were awarded Doctors of Ministry degrees and others Master of Divinity. The keynote speaker was Leonora Montgomery. She was in her 9th decade of life, and she was being awarded an honorary doctorate degree. And in her keynote address, she gave the graduating ministers an assignment that I want to pass on to you. These are her words. She says, "Let me refer you to Erik Erikson, the psychologist who was interested in human development and his idea about 8 sequential stages of life. Sequential stages from infancy to old age. It's a neat tool. Each stage, he proposed, has a developmental task which, if achieved, prepares you for the next stage of development. But what has interested me in is his 8th and last stage of life. The crisis is to be met at the end of life, Erikson said, is between integrity or despair. Those individuals who have taken care of things and people, who have come to an acceptance of one's one and only life cycle, who have come to a new and different love of one's parents, free of the wish they could have been different, who have accepted the fact that one's life is one's own responsibility, they will win through to wisdom and integrity at the end. Wisdom and integrity, she says. If they don't, life ends in despair, and you will have the high privilege of knowing both in your communities. But I am troubled, she writes. Integrity is not a fair description of what we see ahead at the end of life. Unless you step in front of a bus or have a fatal heart attack in your sleep, what lies ahead is disintegration of the body, including the brain. We experience or observe losses of sight, of hearing, of balance, of short-term memory, or the driver's license, of mobility, and of home. And the sadder losses of relationship, of beloved partners and best friends. Various powers remain with each of us, but what we observe and dread are the losses. And so you have been taught that a good life is onward and upward, and then decline, the drop-off. She did that, the drop off. She was very dramatic. I think, she says, Erickson's final beautifully described stage is not the ultimate, but the penultimate. I think his 8th stage is the next to the last stage. Think about it. If we are to affirm the worth of every person, if we are creatures of God, are we not wholly worthy from the first breath to the last? What then should the ultimate stage of life look like? This last frail stage is not to prepare you for the following stage. It is, I don't refer to immortality. This final stage is not future-oriented. It is to complete your growth and give your life final integrity. So the last developmental task is, what can you do under conditions of limitation? I'm not thinking just the best you can. What if every preceding stage is a preparation for the final heroic culmination of your entire life when the hurdles are the highest? The limitations are unique to each person, and so are the remaining powers. What kindness now can you show? What good thing under these conditions can you do? With such powers as remain, what hope will you leave? Could your congregants learn to look beyond the limitations to see how creatively their elders are thriving? How they are using their accessible power, including spiritual power and their love beyond belief accrued in the previous years? Not future-oriented, immediate, using selective memories and skills to present, skills honed to present need, streamlined. What if the course of a well-lived life goes like this, without decline? What would your prophetic, priestly, pastoral, and social justice ministries look like if you believed that? She was speaking to a bunch of ministers. I submit to you that your ministry is to create an environment in which your people can live as to succeed at that very last stage of their lives. Kathleen Taylor once gave a TED Talk, which is really good, you should watch it, called Rethinking the Bucket List. After 20 years of working as a hospice counselor, she found that at the end of life, people are totally incapable of bullshit. I'm sorry for them. They are authentic. They are courageous and open and honest and brave. They can change their mind and find joy in the smallest moments. They are losing so much and diminishing in capacity, while at the same time their perspective shifts and their presence expands. When asked the number one regret, they say, I wish I had had the courage to live the life that was true to myself and not what others expected of me. So it is never too late or too early to shed what is false and to live your life as eulogy virtues instead of resume virtues. As Taylor emphasizes, it is never too early to find out who we are. May it be so. So please rise in body or spirit and join me in singing Blessed Spirit of My Life, number 86.
invite you to now join me in reciting the words on the screen or in your order of service to accompany our extinguishing of the chalice. We extinguish this flame,
but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. I close this service with the benediction written by John O'Donohue. It's a blessing called "To Come Home to Yourself." May all that is unforgiven in you be released. May your fears yield their deepest tranquilities, and may all that is unlived in you blossom into a future graced with purpose and love. May it be so.
The